everyone. So we did a bit of an oopsie when recording the Google Hangouts for this episode in that we didn't record it. So instead, we're going to use this background to show who's speaking. So if you want to know who's talking, just look for the 100 from the Mob Psycho 100 logo and follow it from icon to icon, and it should be pretty accurate. Also, please be aware that this podcast will have spoilers for Mob Psycho Season 1 and 2 and coarse language for us always. Thanks, enjoy!
Hello everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of the Our Anime Podcast. This time we are going to be talking about one of my favorite shows of the past few years, Mob Psycho 100. Joining us today we have myself, Sinris, as well as our other members, Fate Steel Taylor.
I'm just keeping it Mob Psycho 100.
Hey, Mozilla Fennekin.
Hey, I'm you can call me Moz Psycho 100 for today.
Ooh, I like it.
Good one. And our very special guest for this episode, hiding in public.
Sarazawa, no pun, just Sarazawa. I'm Sarazawa.
Alright, so, hiding, I had never watched any of your videos before.
Good choice.
We had you on for this one, because somewhat ironically, I don't really watch AniTube very much at all. But to prepare to talk to you today, I watched a few of your Mob Psycho videos because you have a number of them, and I was very impressed by the kind of analysis you put together for them and the perspective that you have on the series. So I am really excited to talk to you about it all today, with the second season having just ended. How about we go around, because I just said that this is one of my favorite shows of the past few years. Definitely one of my favorites that I've ever watched airing. But, Tay, why don't you tell us how you feel in general terms about the series?
Right. So I got introduced to this a while ago, like 2014-ish, when it was a web, like with the webcomic version, because I was reading One Piece at the time, the manga, and like I just loved One stuff, but I was reading One's what the art with Yusuke Murata in Shonen Jump, I think, but it came out monthly, and I was like, yo, I need like more of my One fix. But it was hard to go from like the beautiful art of Murata to One's chicken scratch for One Punch Man. Mm-hmm. So I was like, why don't I just do Mob Psycho 100, because that's a little different. And to me, like, this has been a series that I actually did not have high hopes for originally, and I actually did not keep up with the webcomic for very long, just because I wasn't a huge fan of it. And actually, with even though I loved the One Punch Man manga, by the time it started airing, I had kind of soured on it a little bit. So when Mob Psycho 100 started airing, I believe it was 2016.
That sounds right.
Yeah. I went into it knowing that, you know, like Bones was behind it, much of the same staff, animation staff particularly behind One Punch Man was behind it, of course. So I knew it was going to look great, but I was just like, I'm just watching it so that I can fulfill like my usual, like back then, 35 airings in a season. But like, by the time it surpassed where I had read in the webcomic, I just like fell in love with the series so much, especially towards the end. And then this season, starting off with the very beginning arc, with the girl who fake asks out Mob, like from then on, like this show just like started on an incredibly high note and just like kept it all the way through. And I definitely will love to talk more about just what attracts Mob Psycho 100 to me so much. Oh, Sin, I do want to say a real quick thing though.
Okay, go ahead.
When I was watching this, I was like, man, like, you know, it's great that Sinris is going to be on this podcast and do an awesome job hosting it. I wonder why he was like so invested into this. And then I, you know, watching the Mob Psycho 100 season 2 OP, there's the line in English where they say, "Is this your ideal?" And I was like, oh, that's it. Sinris loves his ideals.
Hey, will I ever be free of you?
You will never be free from your ideals.
Thank you for that.
I got you, fam.
I didn't realize you had such a history with it, like going all the way back to before the adaptations and everything. Maz, what about you?
I'm actually not too far off from Fate. Because I had been reading One Punch Man since like late 2013, early 2014. And of course I heard about Mob at some point. I didn't actually start reading it until sometime a little before the anime started, first season. And I liked it, but at the same time it wasn't something that I was super invested with, maybe just because the art style is, what it is. Not necessarily bad, I would say, but I had a lot of fun reading the manga kind of alongside the anime, where I would get a few chapters in and they would be covered in like the next episode or two of the anime. I did that a little bit for season 2 as well, although I actually fell behind. Haven't read the manga in a while, so I stopped at like chapter 70 or so. But but I did that because I like One's style of storytelling quite a bit. And I think that like as fun as One Punch Man is, you can kind of tell that it's kind of a joke to him, and Mob is like really his baby. Like that's that really highlights his best strengths. And I think the anime comes together really well because of how they translate his style into animation. So that's I guess my really basic general thoughts about Mob.
Okay. And Hiding. So from the number of videos you have on it alone, as well as the fact that it seemed from your videos, one thing I really appreciated about them was how much of yourself you put into them, and talking about like your experiences that make this series resonate with you. It seems like this is a show that is very important to you. Is that the case?
Yes. Yeah, no. The show's awesome. I mean, the way I got associated with Mob was, I watched One Punch, and I was like, I'm not gonna be into this. This is too shonen-y looking. And then I was like, I really like this. And then I was like, wow, Mob Psycho looks ugly. I don't want to watch that at all. And it took like a lot of people telling me to watch it. And the first season, I feel like really indebted to the first season of Mob, because like after I finally stopped being stupid and sat down and I watched Mob, I ended up loving the art style, loving the show and everything. And it's like what finally pushed me. Like I was like, I loved it so much, and yet I had avoided it for some arbitrary stupid reason. And I kind of avoided Evangelion for the same reason. And so I ended up watching Evangelion because Mob like basically
Really?
taught me like, hey, stop being stupid. Like if you think you're gonna like something, watch it. Stop being like, I don't know, and putting it off. And so I ended up really liking that, and I was indebted to it. It was great. Like I gave Mob like an 8.8 or something, which is pretty high for me because I'm a goose. But that was the first season, and the second season came out, and like just everything about it, every single episode is like miles ahead of the second one. I don't have any real connection with the manga specifically, although I'm definitely going to look into it more. But yeah, I made those 2 videos on season 2, just kind of going into the arcs, episodes 1 to 3, looking at the way that it adapts his growth through empathy, because I feel like talking about an episode per episode doesn't really give you a lot of thematic context. Like the reason, I might be going on a little bit of a ramble here.
Go ahead.
I might be putting his chicken scratch style into words, but for me, I think what matters about media and what matters about what we consume, to me at least, not putting this on anybody else, but sort of what we get out of it, the way that we better understand the world around us and sort of can see the beauty and maybe become better people, or just the way it kind of gives us a better knowledge about the world around us. And I think that Mob just really does that. The way that they show the growth in the first 3 episodes. That's why I think it's kind of, instead of talking about it like, here's a whole season review, or here's like episode per episode, I tried to attack second season of Mob for its arcs because the themes and those messages that really just like are so deeply girded into, especially the second season, are really what make it special.
Yeah, I completely agree. My history with the series is not as storied. When I was first getting like into the airing anime lifestyle, really like taking the plunge in and everything, One Punch Man had just come out, so it was one of my early shows, and I thought it was great. I thought it was tons of fun. Back like the normie I was, but yes, now I'm a big elitist.
Yes.
But you know, it's a pretty shallow work, all things told. I still think it's very fun. I think it's like one of the best like action comedies I've ever seen. But above and beyond, or it doesn't really have much to offer. So when I saw that Mob Psycho 100 was coming out, all I knew was that it was by the same guy as One Punch Man, and the title doesn't really do the series any favors in terms of like telling you what kind of tone to expect. So I did not have super high hopes for it, but as soon as it started airing, I was very, very quickly taken in by the sheer difference in, I don't know how to phrase it, but what Maz was saying earlier, that it's clear that as fun as One Punch Man is, this is the series that one really cares about.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw there was an interview about it in which one said, in regards to Mob Psycho, I wanted to write something kind. And I think that sentence alone like sums up what makes this so special. Especially compared to something like One Punch Man, where the framing is often almost kind of mean. Like, it feels like it's making fun of people more often than not, and you know, Saitama is often a character who's like denigrated by the people around him, and nobody like respects him or takes him seriously, and he gets frustrated with that and responds with either like fighting, like getting aggressive back, or just like putting it off and saying he doesn't care or anything. Whereas Mob's reaction to adversity is much more wholesome and personal.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost surprising to me that the same person could make series which have such extraordinary differences in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
No, I
Cool.
No. I think you touched on a lot of good points, and I felt the same way. I think, and one of the things that for me didn't translate well for Mob, One Punch Man. It did feel like, in a sense, it felt like, I don't know, Diet Coke, if that makes sense.
Compared to Mob, you mean?
Oh no, like in general.
Just in general. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely compared to Mob, but like in general, it just felt like in the manga, I felt like it was a lot more fun and like, well, like it felt better paced through the comedy, but like extended throughout, it really did seem to drag on sometimes, that like some of the fights, knowing that Saitama is so overpowered. But Mob, I think, does handle the OP-ness of it all.
Yeah.
The OP, wow.
Walked right
the
into it.
overpoweredness of. Well, that's not something I'd ever said out loud. Yeah, but handles the overpoweredness of Mob a lot better, I think. Because while there is a lot of comedy in Mob, there's a lot of heart, and for me, like, when comedy succeeds is when it has a lot of heart and it has a lot of emotion and care and love behind it as well.
Yeah, I think what we have to look at is, what is success? Like, we take for granted and we assume what a successful thing is, just based on battle. And Mob kind of flips it upside down. Like, the whole point of it is really to reframe how we consider success. So you look at something classic, like any other sort of, shonen. It's the most powerful person succeeds. That's literally the mantra of the villain in Mob Psycho. But it's, whoever has the most power and the most strength, and sometimes he relies on his friends, it's like, whatever. But it's mostly about training physically to get there. And for Mob, killing the opponent, defeating the opponent, fighting the opponent, being stronger than the opponent isn't success, it's failure. The whole frame for the way that they deal with being overpowered is the true power is all in his own personal growth. Like, the success of a battle isn't determined by if he's most powerful, because at the end of the day, he is. It doesn't outright state it as much as One Punch, but it's pretty much conceded, like, yeah, he's just crazy freaking powerful. He's got some sort of mysterious godlike being inside of him. Like, he's gonna win a fight, but the whole moral conundrum that it sets itself in is more like, instead of how much can he grow physically to win a fight, it's how much can he grow as a person in order to understand and disarm the fight. I think that whole reframing is kind of how it deals with the penis. That's sort of how it deals with that situation. Because, yeah, he's overpowered in both cases, but in one case, it's central on the fight, and they use that for comedy. And in the other case, the fight is the exact antithesis to what they want to happen.
Right. If Mob ever has to use his power, then that is already a failure.
Yeah.
Which he even brings up in the finale, too. Remember when he said, it was only for a moment, but I let my power control me instead of controlling my power.
Right. And that was the... That's related to, I think, the element that first caught me about the series early in season 1 was the idea of back when his only real desire that he showed was that he wants to be popular. How he has this power that other people can only dream of having, but to him, that's just who he is, and it's not something that he cares about. What he wants is something much more concrete, something more personal that lets him connect with other people. And that was what I still think, even after season 2 was so good, was the best arc of the show, which was his conflict with his brother Ritsu, where each of them has something that the other desperately wants. And has this sense of inferiority because they can't have the other's abilities, whether it's psychic power or just knowing how to talk to people.
Yeah, I do love the fact that Mob is very self-aware of what he's lacking, and to me, to bring it back to what Heiding said, it is different from other shonens because when I was growing up watching Dragon Ball and watching Naruto and watching Bleach and watching One Piece, it wasn't so much what I was wanting out of these fights, out of these character interactions, was to see how Luffy would win or how Goku would win, right? Or what crazy things would they pull off in order to win, and just have emotional music driving rock in the background. Precursors to Yusei Run. But with Mob Psycho 100, except even in the finale a little bit, there's an inevitability that Mob will win, so you don't have to be invested in how it'll happen. Of course the fights always look amazing, because Bones is crazy, and Nakamura just went balls to the walls, or cubes to the walls, as it happens with the animation, and just, God, it just looks so freaking phenomenal. But it's because we already know that they're going to win, it is more about the emotional journey that Mob's going to go through, the emotional journey that the opposition's going to go through. And sometimes I feel when I watch maybe some sports anime or something, when they try to last minute humanize the villain or the other team, I'm come on, Like we don't have to do that all the time.
Yeah, I feel that.
But here it feels warranted and it feels deserved, especially like with the Mogami arc. I felt like they did it a good way, and even at the very end, like with the final boss, like they kind of humanize him with the wife and his backstory about being alone, but they don't like beat you over the head with like being like, oh, he was so sad, so alone, blah blah blah. No, it's just like it just gives a little bit more layer to him. It doesn't excuse his actions, but it kind of explains a little bit about them.
Yeah, so that's a good subject. Now with season 2 having just ended, how did you guys feel about the final arc and the boss of Claw as like the big bad last villain of the anime?
Honestly, I don't think I was a big fan of the whole thing. I don't know, because like as you guys said, the story of Mob is more about the emotions of it, and a lot of the last couple episodes of Mob were kind of just fights and not necessarily in a particularly developmental way. Although I mean, it was still fine. I could still give it a pass because I think that because the fights they looked so good, honestly. But yeah, I don't know. The only thing I particularly liked with the final fight itself was when Mob just kind of accepts that, you know, like he has to fight in this situation, that, he says specifically, sometimes you have to hurt to understand. I think it's a good point overall. I don't particularly care for how crazy over the top and extreme it got. I feel like the series had better moments. I actually would say my favorite part of the whole series was the episode with that one girl. I kind of forgot the details of it, but when Mob is having that whole dream where he's like in this world for like 6 months and getting pushed around and all.
Yeah.
Oh,
Episode 5.
That
yeah.
was my.
Yeah. Oh my God. Episode 5.
That was mine.
friggin'
I remember
cow.
reading that before season 2 came out. I'm like, okay, this is going to be the best show of all time.
Like that was such a phenomenal episode.
But back to the final arc. Yeah, I mean it was fine, I suppose, but it didn't. I don't know. It just felt a little bit out of place, honestly. Where it's like they're really playing up the action aspect of Mob, and I don't necessarily come to this series for action specifically.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Hiding, what do you think?
I don't know. Am I allowed to push back?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Of course,
back.
all love.
Throw him under the bus.
No, of course.
Fucking
No,
kill him.
because I love the whole series. It's all love intended. All love intended. I'm patting you on the side of the head. There's no hard. I love. It's
Moss,
okay.
he's about to
Everything's
push
good.
you in front of a subway.
no!
No. So episode 5's like directing, general, just like the way they did shot composition, the animation, everything, super creative, super crazy. The first half of that episode is 100% everything you're saying, especially the part with like the sender block and crap. Like, oh my gosh, I was like, ah. But I feel like that last part where like the just pure action, pure fight is happening, I think there's a lot less substance happening than in the final fight. Because it's sort of like everything is a spirit now, and then they fight a little bit, and they're like, but you've decided not to do what I wanted, and he's like, aha, that's right, and then yeah, and that's sort of how the last half of the episode is, as awesome and amazing as it is. In episode 12, I feel like there was multiple moments where it was like Mob loses control, and then he's reminded of with his brother, and so like that's a cool moment. And then I'm gonna die, and then he's Reigen is like, oh, and then he's he's fine. and there's a lot of like those callback moments where it's calling back to that central theme, which the same thing happens in episode 5, but it does it a couple more times, where it's that whole idea of even if you have all the power in the world, to stay on the rails, you sort of have to have these connections. You can't live entirely as an island, and you can't live entirely relying on others. You have to exist in this medium. And I think it was really driving home that core like theme. But also there was like a bunch of super just like non-action related, just iconic moments. Like where he sits where he's like sitting on his knees inside the bubble and like gonna like that moment was awesome. Like even before it, and then where he's trying to absorb
that
all
shot
of the...
gave me very. sorry to interrupt.
No,
but that shot gave me very strong vibes for the end of Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh,
that's funny. I can see that.
Yeah. I can really see that.
Yeah.
To me, I was actually evoked more of a Hunter x Hunter feel for one of my favorite moments in Hunter x Hunter.
I can see that one too.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
But go ahead, go on.
But yeah, I think the episode 12 was really great. Or episode 13 was really great. The fight was really awesome. I feel like the fight animation and stuff, well, I'm not sure. I think it was probably more engaging in episode 5. I like the setup and payoff a lot more in episode 5. I guess I'd say. It kind of felt like it was this big epic climax. Like episode 4 to episode 5 was like one giant arc with a huge payoff at the end, both emotionally and action. And episodes 8 through, well, not 8. Episodes, let's say, okay. I'm trying to decide here. I'm gonna say 10 through 13 is sort of half, fight, half like small character moments. So I definitely feel what you mean, where you're like, the fights are super awesome, but I don't come to mob for the fights. Specifically with the fight against what's his name? The guy his eyes are closed all the time, and then he opens his eyes.
The teleporter.
Yeah.
I don't know his name. I don't remember his name either.
That fight was amazing.
The really cool guy.
Where he takes Teruki's head and he smashes into the ground and smashes into the car. Like, those fights are so creative, but there was very little in terms of character development happening during all that. So I can definitely see, like, in other places in the show where what you're saying is just absolutely true. The fights are awesome, but you don't come to mob for the fights. But I think the way that they sort of set up this final arc was sort of like, fight, small payoff, fight, small payoff, fight, small payoff. And it like got slightly bigger each time, but there wasn't as much of a catharsis of just like straight run up all of episode 4 and half of episode 5 and then bam. That's how I see it. And you can disagree with me. Please do.
Okay. For me, I'd say like the best fights for me were in episode 11, when they're all ganging up on the super cool teleport guy. Because like the fucking camera angles they went through, and just like I was like, how is this legal? Like how are you allowed to like do all these angles like with the like things?
Who
that
did they strap
really
down to get this?
I know.
Yeah.
Like how did you actually come up with like the swooping camera angles that like flow everywhere, and just like how clean everyone looked? And I actually think it's because of the deformed art style that evokes one's original art, like character designs, that actually make it a lot easier for them to animate them so smoothly. I remember that was a conversation that came up in K-On! With the character designer there, with Yukiko Horiguchi, where they said because K-On! Had such simple character designs, it actually allowed the animators to like do really like complicated and intricate movements without, one, increasing the budget by too much, but also two, like not having to work too much on the time by not having to work like focus too much on like having like perfect lines and like perfect detail everywhere. Like you can, with Mob, with the simple lines that it does and the simple colors, you can do crazy freaking stuff.
Yeah. I definitely think that fight was the best looking one of the series.
It's not the most emotionally evoking one, but like visually striking, I think the best one.
One of the best choreographed fight scenes I've ever seen.
And I thought season 1 had some good ones.
Yeah. But I think my general take on season 1 versus 2 is that the first half of season 2 was better than the first half of season 1, but the second half of season 1 was better than the second half of season 2.
Are you including the Reigen 2-episode arc along with the second half of Mob season 2?
I would include that like spiritually, if not in like actual episode count, as part of the first half.
Okay.
Because I think that the way both seasons are broken down is you have like a couple of arcs. Or you have a couple episodes at the beginning that are like loosely tied together, but don't follow like a consistent like arc that builds directly on itself. Then you have like an arc or two in the middle with like the Reigen stuff in season 2 and like the Hanazawa stuff and Ritsu stuff in season 1. And then at the end of the season, you have like the boss rush arc, where they fight Claw and just go like through all of the Claw operatives one after another. I thought that the stuff prior to the boss rush in season 2 was really good and did an incredible job of building on everything that had been established in the first season, everything that was important to Mob and the ways that he needed to like change and develop and all that good stuff. But then the boss rush at the end, really, I couldn't shake the feeling throughout it all that we were just like retreading stuff we'd already seen in season 1, if you know what I mean.
Right.
Like, it didn't feel substantively very different from what we saw when they were fighting the Claw operatives last time. Especially because while Mob goes through like different emotional development over the course of those arcs, the villains all get the same sort of message that like having psychic powers doesn't make you special. You still need to like have connections with other people in order to be like a real person.
What? That was the theme of Mob Psycho 100?
Yeah.
I could not have told you that.
Well, what the fuck are you doing on this episode?
Well,
I'm just here to talk about the fight scenes, obviously.
I think that there was one exception, and that's with Serizawa. So I think the first season definitely, and I think honestly the whole conceit of Mob Psycho 100 is that power doesn't make you special, that you need to rely on others. I think if there was anything that the second season did to add it substance-wise, other than just the fights are way better, don't at me, but is the stuff with like Serizawa, because the whole thing of the first part of Mob, the first season, and even pretty much all of season 2 as well, it does retread just constantly this idea that, hey, you can't do it all alone. You need connections to be with people. And I think season 2 is the first time it really steps in, and it says, with Mogami, whenever he returns, and he gives the advice to Mob, which Mob completely misinterprets, but he misinterprets it in the right way. It's that idea that if you're too nice, if you rely on others too much, you're going to get stepped on, you're going to get pushed over. Sometimes you need to stand up for yourself and respect the other person as much as you respect yourself. And I think that's an adaptation, substance-wise, that wasn't really in the first season, but it was being teed up for the second season. And then Serizawa, who I mentioned previously, the exact stuff that Mob tells him is the opposite of what he tells the leader of Claw. He tells him, you need to stop relying on people so much. You need to make your own decisions. You need to live your own life. You're the protagonist of your own life. And, he repeats that later. It's the idea of, like, everybody's the protagonist of their own life, right? But you don't want to be so self-absorbed in this idea of being the protagonist that nobody wants to tell your story. You want to be in that middle. And so I think if there is like a substantive bit that is added in season 2, I think it is that you need people to be around you, but don't be consumed by those people. You're still your own person. And I think that's sort of like, that was one of the most impactful things for me. I mean, Serizawa is like the best thing to ever exist. I love him so much. So that's why it sticks out to me. But
I'm not gonna push back so much. Is it okay if I like expand / unpack?
you can tell me I'm stupid. I don't care.
No, no, because the thing, like, I agree with most of what you said, but especially where you said everyone, like, just because you have powers doesn't make you special. I actually feel this is one of those things in Mob where I think Reigen embodies this as well, that like, but what someone says isn't or what is said isn't necessarily what is meant, and we also see that with the misunderstanding with Mogami. But I think the idea is not that just because you have powers you aren't special. I think it's the opposite. I think it's that everyone has their own powers and that makes you special.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, it like when especially when they're outside the convenience store, and Mob is like, you guys might have these unnatural Esper powers, but can you grow the vegetables that were in the sandwich? Can you manufacture this can? I like, for me, Mob, why I actually love the final arc so much is because in many ways it is not as brute force blunt about its message and more about the inconsistencies that build within Mob's logic under stress until he finds the path he wants to be. And that to me really represents adolescence. Because they do talk about the fact that the leader of Claw kind of has been a chuny, has just been stuck in middle school this entire time. Whereas Mob is in middle school and he's growing, and he has these conflicting ideas. He's going from one to another, and Dimple Ekubo also talks about that. Talks about how like Mob is rapidly maturing, and like I don't know, maybe you guys had like perfect adventures through adolescence, and great for you guys if you did. But for me, I know I struggled a lot internally with like what I considered right, what I considered wrong, and I think I still struggle with that. I mean, heck, I wanted to be like a public defender when I was growing up, and now I'm selling my soul to corporate law. So like, if there's a bigger departure than that, I don't know what there is. But yeah, so like Mob, so like it's not as evidenced through Mob's words, but through like Mob's actions, his facial expressions, and one-liners that like he isn't like, while this big external conflict is going on, he's going through tiny internal conflicts as well, trying to figure out what makes him special besides his powers. So
yeah, I think he figures everything out I
think so too.
I think right after Mogami comes back and gives him that advice, and he totally misunderstands it. By the time that he's storming that final building, I think he's sorted out all of the little what is that
inconsistencies?
Well, I was gonna say
idiosyncrasies.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Both words work, but
I actually think for me, it's not until he steps into the shield orb that he creates and sits down with the leader of Claw that he finally is at peace with what his to use Sinris's favorite word, ideal is.
I think he has it figured out, but I don't think he has it under control until that part. Like, because he immediately is able to kind of diagnose Serizawa and give him exactly what he needs.
That's a good point.
And then also the same with the leader of Claw, but he loses that control, like we talked about earlier, you know. And then he sees Ritsu and he changes, you know, back into himself. Yeah, I don't think he has it under control until then. Till he sits down. I love that moment. That shot is so great. All the shots in it. I love it. I love
yeah. Especially the Itano circus. It was nice seeing an Itano circus at the end, because I was like, man, they've done so many like great fight choreographies, and then they throw in a Itano circus, and I was just like, you don't need to, because you've done so much original great fight choreography, but like harkening back to like one of the most famous like fight like missile moments in anime history, and doing their own take on it.
Is it just cool. Is it just me missing what is an Itano circus?
Oh, sorry.
Don't worry, I have to look this up too.
Itano circus. Okay. Sorry. It's like a personal like thing that's a favorite of mine. To explain it, there was this animator named Itano who I believe it was an Ideon. Like did this very famous scene where like a bunch of missiles were shot from a mecha and like chased another mecha as it was flying through the sky, and like it looked very cool because like the mecha was darting around and the missiles were following, like because they were like heat-seeking kind of ones. And like if you go on Sakugaburu or if you just type in Itano circus, you'll find that like so many freaking anime have their own Itano circuses, like especially mecha anime all like try to pay homage to Itano circuses by just like having these missiles, like because it looks always cool when you have like these projectiles following a character all around, and they're like zip zap zapping all around, and it's incredibly difficult to pull off, and that's why it's so impressive whenever someone does pull it off.
With like the missile trails.
The missile trails going
okay, I see
around
what you mean now.
as they're like diving in and out, like and then playing with the perspective of the screen.
Yeah. You'll know it when you see.
Yeah.
Definitely. I was going to say that the the thing that disappointed me most about the ending of season 2, that first off, I will agree, Serizawa is the best part of this arc. He's great. But I found, well, the boss ended up like being maybe a little underwhelming, but getting the development he needed to. I thought that Sho was really a waste of a character in the end. It almost felt like one was planning for him to be like the actual big bad, and then changed his mind halfway through the arc at some point. Because when he shows up in season 1, he's like nothing but threatening, and he like beats the shit out of all the good guys before he just pieces out without fighting them. And then you see him reappear in season 2, and it's like implied that he like killed Mob's family and everything, and then
which was great.
Which was an insane
God.
cliffhanger. But then he just immediately walks back from that and says like, "Oh no, that didn't actually happen."
Yeah, that was kind of a letdown. I was like screaming at my TV when that happened. I was like, "There's no fucking way they just killed everyone."
Right, and then when
that seems like a huge one moment, like looking at like One Punch Man, like that seems like a huge like, oh yeah, he just killed his entire family. Psych, he's a good guy.
It does feel like a one moment when you put it that way, but it also seemed as if it set something up for Mob as a character and then robbed us of the payoff from it. Because like he starts to like lose control. And note that unless I'm forgetting something, Mob never actually like hits 100% in this whole season, does he?
Well, at the very end, doesn't he hit 100%?
No, he hits 100 multiple times.
Yeah, and he hits 100% fighting Mogami.
Or sorry, he hits 100%, but he never goes to like the question mark percent.
Yeah, that was
episode 5.
Yeah,
that's what I meant.
Yeah.
And in that moment when he like goes home and his house is on fire, he like builds up to that, and it like very briefly is like flashing that, and then Ekubo is able to like talk him back from the edge.
Yeah.
And he says like, oh, they're probably not actually dead, but you get in the same moment Ekubo's like internal thought saying, I have no idea if it's true or not.
But like, then, if I don't do this, like the world's gonna explode.
So it sets up these huge stakes. Like if they're dead, if something bad actually happened to this family, then this is a huge thing for Mob. But then they're just not. And the next time it actually comes up is when he finally meets Sho, and he's like, oh, are you the one who set my house on fire? I forgive you. And that's it. So
yeah, it is a little underwhelming.
Yeah. And Sho just ends up like becoming friends with Ritsu off screen somehow that we don't see, and then like confronts his dad and gets his ass kicked, and that's all that happens with the character.
They're in middle school, so I won't elaborate on probably what happened off screen, but but yeah, no, that was a little jarring.
I actually liked how Mob specifically said, I'm not mad anymore. I think just because of how much was going on at the time. So, I don't know. I didn't mind it. Although I will say that when that cliffhanger happened, I was, like, in a way excited, but also at the same time confused. Because I'm just like, wow, that is so drastic of a change from the rest of the series. I was really skeptical of it and maybe a bit worried. It seemed so much edgier. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that because technically Mob did suffer for like 6 months in the dream world, so yeah.
Yeah, that's the real shit though. Like I thought Endless 8 is still like objectively worse time-wise. But like it's still pretty bad.
Yeah, I was like never actually convinced that they had killed off his whole family. Like I didn't think they would go that far, but the fact that
I wanted them to. I wanted them to so
a part of
badly.
me like hoped they did because I'm a glutton for suffering. But
really?
The fact
Type Moon Wizard is
shut up. Get out of here, Tay. But the fact that they resolved it into like such a nothing that was like, oh, Sho wasn't even there for any bad thing at all. He was there as a good guy the whole time.
I will say though, what is pretty good about that is that came right off the heels of what I thought was a really, really nice and wholesome episode of the race, which I was honestly
Yes.
they were building up to that with Mob. You know, he was going to take top 10 in this marathon, or at least try, you know, and all of this was so he could impress Tsubomi, you know, and he was really, like, they were really building up to that. Like, he was building up so much confidence, and I really wanted him to ask out Tsubomi or say something to her, and then they do that, and I'm like, I was almost disappointed. I'm just like, I just wanted to see the confession, dude.
I just wanted to see wholesome, because, like, you also see him, like, after he trips and, like, bloodies his knee, that, like, Tsubomi-chan is, like, looking on and, like, is about to root him on, but then sees how concentrated it is and, like, holds back.
So, I love how they do that. This is a completely different episode, but I love how they do that. Basically, earlier in the episode, they have his parents at the ending line, right? And they're like, oh... He's like, because that's what his dad sounds like for some reason. But they're like, hey, maybe we should move to the middle of the line. You know, we're rooting for Shigeo, so we need to go towards the middle, right? And so it shows them. They're there at the end where everybody else is. And they're like, let's go to the middle so we can see Mob. And then later in that episode, where's Tsumobi? She's not at the end. She's in the middle. I think that was like a subtle way for them to like easily imply that she was waiting for him. And that's why whenever he comes on, she's like, oh, that's him. And she's going to wave. But then she sees how concentrated and she doesn't go. I thought that was such a subtle, like well put together and kind of conveyed moment. I don't even know how it goes in the manga. That might have just been directly adapted, and nobody at Bone should be credited for that moment. But I thought it was so slick, just how they kind of subtly pushed that. I love that.
God, I love Tsubomi. Like, even from episode 1, where she's, like, under the bridge watching, like, Mob do the whole thing with his fake girlfriend and Emmy. And, like, sees him, like, stand up for her and, like, repair the story that she wrote. And Tsubomi's like, so cool. I'm like, yo, like, there's so many facets about Mob. Psycho 100 that I just absolutely adore and love.
It's perfect. It's wonderful.
It's such a I tweeted this out earlier. But like I'm just very proud to be alive at a time where like we have this wholesome, kind, popular anime. Like an anime that a lot of people who are like casuals will get into. Just because like Crunchyroll is obviously like promoting the shit out of it.
And they should be.
As they should be, right? And it's, you know, like, a lot of people have said, like, you know, like, it's really funny, like, watching athletes, like, in the NBA talk about, like, how influential, like, Goku and Vegeta were on their childhood growing up, and, like, telling them to, like, never give up and, like, always be resilient. And to me, like, I'm hoping, like, you know, we get a generation of kids, like, watching Mob, because I've heard the dub for Mob is good, too, which will help it with this casual audience. Like, people growing up with, like, the idea that they should be mindful of other people, that they should be sympathetic to other people, and that they should be always thinking of other people and not just about themselves. So
it's going on Toonami as well.
Heck yeah.
Shoot. Oh, dude, fuck! I love Toonami's my childhood, man. Like, if yeah,
couldn't be a better show. Couldn't be a better show to be on anywhere at any time, at any block, anything, anytime. It's the best. It's the best. If I ever want to be like, you want to be like, oh, you like anime? I'm like, I don't like anime. But if I ever want to be like, yeah, I like anime, I'd show them this one. It's the best. It's got none of the things that you got to excuse and like try to soothe people in. It's just only gold. It's just pure little nuggets of diamonds. It's just perfect. The only thing that maybe is slightly excusable is, hey, stop being a little piece of crap. Listen, you may not like the art style, but you're gonna like the art style. You're gonna like it. And then,
oh my gosh,
like, I can't think of a single thing that I'd be like embarrassed if I was like, I love this, and somebody watched it.
I agree.
Like, I love Gurren Lagann, but like the whole thing with like Yoko's outfit, I'd be like, yo, like you got.
There's all those small little anime-isms that for people who are uninitiated, it's like, uh-oh.
Or like Evangelion, a classic, but you have to be like, yo, like you have to pace yourself. There's a lot of shit that goes on. Also, it's like really fucked up, but like. But, like, you don't have to worry about the Mob. And, like, for me, one of that comes into the fact that, and I mentioned this on a previous or later podcast, depending on the schedule of these podcast episodes. That there was a tweet I saw, and I really wish I could credit the person who said this, because I can't find it again. The idea that, like, DC has been struggling to write a good superhero story and a good superhero movie for like the last 25 years. Meanwhile, One has done 2 manga that like do it really well with One Punch Man and Mob Psycho 100. Yeah. Because to me, like, Mob really reminds me of like the same things that Clark Kent and Superman have. And one of my problems with Clark Kent and Superman in general is that like he's so overpowered that like every fight is basically the writers trying to underpower him and being like, oh, like this time there's kryptonite everywhere. No, Lex Luthor literally has an entire suit made out of kryptonite. How will he survive?
Yeah.
And like going to like really impractical measures. But here, like, we see One really handle the overpowered, super strong nature of Mob with care, and in a way that like you don't mind that he's overpowered, that you care so deeply about who he is. And it actually reminds me of this Superman one-shot story, which is my favorite in DC, which is called Superman Secret Identity, which was like a mini series that dealt with this idea in a world where Superman was like a merchandising concept and was like a comic book character and very popular. And this old couple in Kansas, they go out into their fields and then they find a little baby boy in their field, and then they pick him up, and their last name is Kent, and they're like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if we named him Clark Kent, like Superman? And they like, you know, like he gets made fun of it for a long time, and he hates his like alter ego in Superman, just like does not want to grasp with that identity. But the twist of the story is that he actually becomes Superman. He actually inherits the powers of Superman, and like he has to struggle with both having the responsibility of knowing that he can save anyone with the wish that he, you know, he just wishes he could be an ordinary person. And I feel like that's something Mob handles well too, especially when they especially through the eyes of Ritsu for me this season too, where he talks about especially because they said I think it was the leader of Claw's Kid show says like, oh, Ritsu, you have more latent power than your brother. And then Ritsu later, a couple episodes, is like, you know, I used to think all I wanted was psychic powers like my brother, but really, I just wanted that single-minded, driven mentality and attitude to pursue something wholeheartedly. And to me, that's just like, it's awesome to see like Mob struggle with the Body Improvement Club. And just how supportive the Body Improvement Club is of Mob's like milestones and like being able to do more push-ups or run more. They're like, Mob, you're the best. And like these guys are like jacked out of their minds, and they're so happy for Mob to be like able to do like a couple of push-ups here and there.
4-day hell training camp at my granny's house.
The Body Improvement Club are the real MVPs of this series.
They really,
Great.
oh my god. When Ekubo Dimple takes over the captain of the Body Improvement Club.
Oh my god, that's the sickest.
That was great.
Oh my god, that was like so fucking cool. Oh, it was, because it really showed that like while they know how to do like Esper choreography fights, they also know how to do like on the ground like boxing, like physical like mano a mano fights.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Something great about two big meaty dudes just smacking each other. I love it.
Yeah.
It's like that FMA Brotherhood. Whenever you have the two
when
Armstrong and
Mizumi's
housewife's
husband,
husband,
and then they just like
Izumi
check out
Curtis.
each other.
Yeah, and they both
Yeah.
come together to fight Sloth.
Yo, and they just take. Oh my god.
It was like that kind of vibe where I was just like, yeah.
Just like punch the fucking dude in the face. Dude, it was great.
I think it's still one of the best moments in the entire series when he first joins the Body Improvement Club, and they've got you set up thinking like, oh, he's like found this club at school that's got like the other outcasts in it, and they're interested in something that he's good at. Like, it sets up like the typical I don't know, like teen movie moment where he finds like the space that he's comfortable in with like the other nerds who can be his friends, and then he's like, no, I'm gonna get buff instead.
Yo, I love that. I love that he chooses that. Like,
it's the perfect moment of subversion, right? Because I don't think anybody sees that coming.
Yeah.
Right. And it is also like one of those things where like it is really like supportive, because like all my friends who like go to the gym regularly and like take really good care of their bodies, they're like the most supportive people.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing more that would make them happy than to see someone who's like unathletic like getting the motivation to go to the gym and like really hit the gym hard and like exercise, and they're like, yeah, let's do it, like you go, like that's their happiness.
You know,
So
this might be a completely wrong epiphany to have. I haven't thought through this, but you guys talking about that and stuff, it sort of makes me realize like that's pretty like that happens a lot in anime. I feel like the jocks and stuff are like really cool guys, or like it's the main character or the main character's friend, and like it's not even a big deal. Like I feel like in American media, a lot of like I mean I'm maybe Canadian too, I don't know, everything's in Hollywood. But like, you know, everything is like, oh, it's a nerd, it gets superpowered, now it's good, and there's a bunch of bullies, and it gets the girl, and she's a cheerleader, and that's sort of how it goes, like, a lot of the stuff, and the jocks are the bad guys and stuff, and like...
Well, shit, I'm gonna have to throw away my script I had all ready for Hollywood.
Definitely, that's a dead ringer,
That's a good point, actually, now that you
like, yeah.
point that out. Like, unless it is, like, a sports show, then you'll rarely see like the main character is like a big jock, but it is pretty frequent that like
it's rarely that they're put in a bad
the token
light.
jock character is like just like a really like chill, supportive guy. That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
Like, remember, since it's April, you know your lion April,
Oh no.
the blonde-headed dude.
Yeah,
he's like on the
yeah,
soccer
yeah.
team, but he's like. I know. I brought it up because I think I saw your tweet earlier. That's why I brought it up.
Between the three of us, I think I have the highest opinion of it, and it's not that. The soundtrack is great. And the musical performances are very wonderful, and I think any more exposure to Chopin is a good one in my book. So, it also looks gorgeous. And it was primarily done by one person. But anyway, yes, that is true. That they do have the supportive jock friend, it is interesting because like the thing that came to mind immediately for me was like Spider-Man, especially like the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Where like Andrew Garfield is the way too hot nerd who's a social outcast somehow, despite being incredibly hot.
Yeah.
And like you have Flash Thompson who's like the jock bully and like, you know, like
Yeah,
messes with Spider-Man, and that's like the usual thing.
It's so normal. It's like not even questioned. It's just like, yeah, that sure is how high school is, even though it's not.
The Andrew Garfield movies do have like a good moment of subversion.
Oh yeah, with
where Flash like approaches him after after Uncle Ben dies.
What?
And...
Uncle Ben dies in a Spider-Man
What?
movie?
Yeah, shocking, right?
Oh my gosh, shocking? She's what?
But Peter like slams him into the locker. He's like, what do you want? He's like,
yeah.
Man, I was just gonna say sorry about your uncle.
Yeah, yo, I also love that moment.
That is really good.
It is. There are unexpectedly nice moments, like you found my weakness. It's small knife. But yeah, no. So like seeing the Body Improvement Club like being really wholesome, and just like I think because in season 1 we see how wholesome and how kind his friends are. With season 2, the first episode showing that like Emmy and her friends are like actually terrible people to her, and like kind of terrible to Mob, because you know they like fake ask him out, or dare her to fake ask him out. It's like a pretty shitty thing to do. And then with the Mogami arc, seeing just like how cruel and terrible people can be, I think really does. It actually brings me back to the finale where Mob says, "Oh, you must have been unlucky then." To the leader of Claw. And then Claw's like, no, I'm really like, I've been blessed with power and everything. And then, but you think about it, like Mob is like, they've both been blessed with power, but Mob, to him, the power comes from the bond he's had with his friends, and the fact that, like, especially after he's gone through that simulation in Mogami's world where
that
he
line
didn't
makes
have
so.
that...
Oh, thank you for pointing that out. That line is so much better with that context.
It is.
I didn't put that together myself first, because he's experienced like both ways, like growing up with supportive people around him and also without them.
Yeah.
And he knows firsthand, like, if you don't have a support system, like how easy it can be to like
Fall off
give
the
in
rails.
to your urges.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to point the blame when the foot's on your throat than
Yeah.
whenever you're living
Ooh.
happy, you know?
Ooh. It's a good one. I'm gonna have to use that in daily conversations.
Really?
I'm gonna be at McDonald's and they're gonna be like,
I
"Oh,
literally
sorry,
just- I just lifted that line from the Joe Rogan and Andrew Yang podcast. That's something that Andrew Yang says.
Oh man. No, I'm gonna use that. They're gonna be like, "Sorry, the McFlurry machine is down." I'm like, "It's a lot easier to point the blame at someone when a foot's on your throat, isn't it?"
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Sorry. I'm actually gonna go to McDonald's instead of McDonald's. Sorry,
That's
McDonald's.
so funny. Oh, I'm really glad you guys liked that. I liked it too, but I
Yeah.
didn't expect it to go over so
It's a
well. I like
crazy-
immediately felt guilty. I was like, crap, I have to tell them I didn't come up with it.
What a great original line you've come up with. We could make a religion out of this.
The Psycho Helmet religion.
Hey,
That's coming up, season 3.
Ooh, I would
Yeah,
love
so-
season 3.
So from what I've heard, there's not really enough content for another entire season, but there is like one more arc
Really?
of the manga.
Oh,
that hasn't
did
been
Mob
done.
Psycho 100 end?
Yes, it's over.
I thought there was
Oh.
like 60 chapters or something. Isn't there like 140 chapters, or is it like 120 or something?
This is what I'm getting secondhand. I only know one person who's read the manga,
Moz?
which is Tactician Jack in our Discord server.
I've
Moz,
only
do you
read
have
up
anything
to
to say?
chapter 67, and for the record, there is 109 total. And
Oh,
six,
okay.
67
Crap,
was
there's a
about where episode 5 was, I think.
Oh,
But Jack told me she thinks there's not enough for one more season, but there is
Well, they are doing...
something left.
Which
Yeah.
is weird.
they are doing an OVA.
Because the OVA is completely original. One is coming back
Oh.
on
Yeah,
to
that's
completely
right.
new material.
Oh,
Wait,
okay.
so they're actually adhering to the original in OVA in original video animation? What?
So yeah, I don't know, like
They're bringing
I
like
don't know anything about the content in the little bit that's left unadapted, but maybe we'll get a movie. Maybe we'll just get like
6 seasons in a movie.
maybe we'll just get like a Monogatari style thing where they just like adapt one episode, like one arc with a few episodes.
I would prefer
I don't know.
that.
I hope that we get some sort of wrap up for it.
Heck, since they're bringing one back to do more extra content in general for the OVA, I mean, hey, they're already bringing him on once. Why not just bring him
Yeah.
on and slightly kind of, not pad it out, but just add a little more content to give it proper for the season, and just have one be the one who writes it and kind of storyboards it.
I'd
Well-
be super happy with that too.
Unfortunately, though, his name is 1 and not 2, so they've already used the one time they
Yeah.
can, they can use him. And you know he is
Is that why
someone
Madhouse got rid of the? They gave it to the other season.
Yeah, they were like, oh yeah, we've done it once. No, it's yeah, and he's someone who lives up to names. If nothing else, you know, like One Punch Man, literally one punch is all he needs. And then Mob Psycho 100, you know, Cinerus would like to try to tell you that he never hit 100 in this season. But if we did not see Mob hit 100, I think I would have given this a 2 under, you know, fraudulent advertisement,
No,
false advertising.
Taste
can't-
classic hatred for shows that mislead you with the title.
I can't remember the name, but like it doesn't show it in episode 12. But he hits sadness a second time in the manga. 100% sadness whenever he's crying and looking at the boss. He's actually hit 100, and that one is sadness for the second time. And then the one in the manga, it's called something different at the beginning of episode 9, but whenever the fire thing breaks out, it's called tenacity in the manga, and that's what he hits 100 there. I can't remember the names of the other ones in the season, but that's those two.
I do like the episode titles for each one of them. Like especially second season. Like first season, they were more like, it seemed like they had more like ideas behind them, but like corner true identity, even then continue forward, collision power type guidance, the battle for social rehabilitation friendship,
Boss fight.
and then when you want to figure out what kind of social media you want to join in order to talk with our anime podcast and a lot of our friends, you have episode 5, Discord choices.
I actually remember
So-
one of the other 100% was Rage.
Oh yeah, we did.
yeah,
see-
yeah.
I wasn't sure if that was him or if that was.
I'm
Claw
pretty sure
Boss.
it'd be Mob because he was pretty rageful at the moment.
They have the different counter for the mob boss.
It was like
Like
10%,
output.
20%,
Yeah.
50%.
Well, he had a few different blow-ups during the during the mob boss fight. During boss fight, during that episode. There was multiple blow-ups, so yeah, Rage could have definitely been one.
Yeah, it was it was just, man, I'm just like so proud of this show. Like I just keep feeling this sort of pride, like, because it is one thing that we don't have to like excuse. Like, I was just watching Penguin Drum with my roommate over the weekend, and like our roommate came in at like the wrong time where they like find the maid and like make her do like this weird sexy photo shoot randomly. Like, of all the times to walk into Mamoru Penguin Drum. Like,
There are a lot of bad times to watch.
they are a
Mario
lot of
Penguin
bad
Drum.
times. There are. That's a good point. But like, anyone could like walk into any moment of Mob, and there wouldn't be like really a bad moment.
Yeah.
And like, I would really like,
Oh, definitely.
and yeah, and like, to me, I what makes this so close to perfect for me is how imperfect these characters are, and how they have like dichotomies and multitudes within themselves. Like how Reigen is both a con artist and yet, as Mob says, a good person. Yo, like, I teared up when that happened. Like, I almost like cried in that after credit scene.
I cried
where-
like almost every single episode.
Oh my god. He's like, oh, I know what you are all like from the first day, and like Reagan's like, oh no, he knows I'm a fraud. Like, and like that whole time he's like, he's been so self-conscious about being called a fraud by everyone, and Mom's gonna be just another person to call him a fraud. But he's like, no, you're a good person. Oh, I'm just gonna cry for a couple of minutes. Be right back.
Which raises the question: at what point, if ever, does Mob like figure out that Reigen isn't actually an Esper?
Well, it's implied that he knew from the start, right? Mm-hmm. It's because, and if you go back into the season 1, this is actually cool because I've rewatched it 2 times during the airing of season 2.
Damn.
Because I got my
Oh,
friend,
shoot.
I got 2 of my friends into it. So I've rewatched the first season twice over the course of this. And there's something he says in season 1 where he asks and he's like, "Is he really a psychic?" And Mob says his powers are more spiritual.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, I remember that line. Okay.
Dab.
But yeah, no, I mean, it's implied in season 2 also that he's known from the start, but it's sort of like, but did he? But I think it's probably likely, at least to the start of whenever we knew Mob, that he understood he didn't have psychic powers, but Reagan's whole message to him is everybody has different powers, you know? Just because you have a power doesn't make you special, it's how you use it, you know? That sort of thing. It's great.
I really
Everything about
love just
great.
everything about
it's
Reigen, just from the character himself, but also the way he's handled in the story. Like, somehow his gimmick never got old to me, and I think, like, probably the best part about season 1 in general is the whole joke about how Claw thinks that he's so powerful that they can't sense him. And it's because he uses all of his offhand tricks to defeat them, and I'm like, oh my god, he's the most powerful person in the universe or something. That was great. But also, season 2, you know, acknowledges that he is a possibly toxic influence on Mob, and really explores that. And it's like, you can't really argue with that, to be honest.
You really can't, especially when he's like, "Yo, don't go to like karaoke with your friends. They're not your real friends." And it's like, Reigen, you don't know shit.
Yeah.
But then he looks into the camera and he just says, "You've grown so much."
Yeah.
That was good.
I think that's there's a very interesting like subtext to all of their interactions in that arc, because there was definitely a time when like Mob needed Reigen, like just looking at like all the times they flash back to their first meeting, like without Reigen there to guide him, like young Mob would have been completely lost. But by the time that arc comes about in this season, Mob has grown so much that he doesn't really need Reigen anymore. Reigen is kind of more of an imposition on him than anything. And it seems that up until that moment, like there are definitely times when you see that Reigen is thinking about like what Mob is thinking of him and like how he's changed and everything. In particular, I'm thinking of the scene where they go to like exercise that family, and then Reigen has to like weigh whether or not like he can make Mob do it for the customers.
Right.
But it's not until that arc when Reigen like fully realizes that Mob has changed so much to the point that he acting the way that he has been is only holding Mob back at this point, and that something about their relationship needs to change.
Yo, that like family, like ghost family episode though, that was
so good.
That was real.
It was great.
That was fucking real as shit, man.
Oh, can we talk about Ekubo like trying to egg the ghost dead on to like actually turning him into a monster? What do you guys think about Ekubo? I cannot get a read on that character.
Well, I think he's gonna play a big role in the Psycho Helmet arc.
Okay.
I really like him.
I like him too in a similar way to how I like Reigen, but the line of is this person good for Mob or bad for him definitely like feels like it trends way more toward the bad side for him than it does for Reigen.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, he wants to be God.
Yeah.
Moss, how about you?
I don't have any
strong
strong opinions of him. I think he's fine. It's more about the implementation to the story. That was a weird wording of that, but I have more to say about that as a subject in a bit.
Okay.
Unless you want me to just do that now. Well, I think that
let's do it.
The bread and butter of one's works is the subversions that he makes to the stories. Like we love the Body Improvement Club so much, and they're a subversion of the sort of club, the club anime, where character is or does a certain thing and then he just gets roped into doing some club. They spend an entire episode setting up for that one thing only for Mob to say, no, I'm going to join the Body Improvement Club because that's a lot better for my life than hanging out with some weirdos who don't know shit about psychic powers. There are just so many different things in Mob that one just knows what is like good and bad about storytelling and kind of uses both to his advantage. One of my favorite moments from season 1 was I don't even remember them, but they're like one of those side groups with all those really weak psychics that were trying to do something, trying to build something for themselves. And Ritsu joined them for a bit. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Oh yeah. They end up playing a bigger role. Yeah.
And there was one time when Ritsu met up with them again. They're like, "Oh, hey guys, I completely forgot your names." And I'm like, "Yeah, I forgot their names too. Thank you, Ritsu."
Yeah.
That is a good moment. That's a great moment. Every moment's great. Jesus, you just bring it up. It's a great moment.
Dimple specifically, there was actually, I think my favorite moment of season 1 overall was when it seems that Dimple just freaking dies, and it's kind of building up Mob to be like so torn up about it. Like it was actually Hanazawa who did that. Hanazawa was like, "Yeah, I killed your friend. How do you feel about that? Are you mad? Are you mad?" He's like, "Not really, actually. I didn't really care about Dimple that much. He was kind of a weirdo."
Because he was literally the previous arc's villain. Like, he was just bothering Mob. Like, he hadn't really given any sort of
it's kind of funny over the course of the series how Dimple, like, just kind of decreases in relevancy, but also, as a result, becomes a better, not necessarily person, but, just a better thing, where he even gets what he did want in the end, where he's like, oh, I'm going to take control of Mob's body. And he does end up doing that.
Right, against when they're in the Mogami arc.
But overall, he just kind of, I guess, warms up to everybody, and he's like, nah, it would be wrong to, oh, I really have to protect Mob, or else, they won't forgive me if I let something happen to him. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. With Dimple, he's power obsessed, right? And nobody takes him seriously. And I think that sort of is forcibly ironing out some of his power crazy, godlike tendencies. I'm not saying that they're completely ironed out and stuff. There's more to be adapted and everything, but generally speaking, I think you see that sort of development of Dimple. He's being affected more by Mob than Mob's being affected by him, because Mob never took him seriously. The first episode of season 1, he's trying to get all nostalgic and be like, "Yeah, we're back. Ah, yeah, I should be your mentor," and he's like, "That sounds disgusting." And I think that's totally what it is. I think that Reigen influenced Mob until Mob has grown from Reigen's knowledge enough to realize when Reigen is doing exactly what he warned him of. And then once Mob does that, he leaves. Reigen realizes he was in the wrong. Fix it. He's a better person. He's not just using Mob anymore. So it sort of sets off his growth. And then the same thing with Dimple, except for I think it's even more one-sided, where nobody ever took Dimple seriously, and just slowly sort of being strapped from his power, and then seeing the good actions of the people around him have slowly made him start to be more connected to these people. Dimple's great. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
I wish we had a little more Hanazawa in season 2, but
Yeah.
Oh, did you see the part where in episode 13 he puts freaking Serizawa's hair on top of his head and like picks his nose, pretend like he...
Oh yeah, like in the background. Yeah.
that was awesome.
It's like a 2-second clip. It's so funny.
It's really hard for me to find. Like, I think I'm probably going to go back and rewatch parts of season 1, just because I've been like talking about this nonstop with my roommate, and I figure it's as good as time as any to go back and rewatch it. But I remember watching it early on and not being like incredibly impressed, but I'm sure that my opinion has changed now that I see what it builds up to.
It did take me a couple episodes to get totally on board. At the beginning, I think it was the episode where he fights Dimple that I was really sold on it. We're coming up on like an hour 15 now, so we'll start wrapping it up. But did anybody else? I assume some other people did, but your take on the reference in the first OP to
Oh my god,
The
that
broccoli?
was
this
genius.
episode?
Yeah, the
That was
broccoli.
really freaking good.
When they put a giant broccoli in the OP one, I did not think
well-
it was actually going to show up in OP 2.
Well, but the whole sequence is like it shows like a diagram of Mob's body with a line that like goes from his head to his heart, and then his heart explodes into the broccoli.
Yeah. No, the first OP covers spoilers for basically the entire series, because I'm not sure if they thought there was going to be a season 2. The OP is literally just a vomit of every plot detail for the entire series.
Yeah.
I like the flying car in the second OP. I thought that was a cool little reference.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, the second OP I really enjoyed.
Saitama's
watching,
on
but-
Reigen's phone. He's calling Saitama.
Oh, I did not
I
realize
didn't know that.
Yeah.
I never saw that.
If you pause right when Reigen falls during the roll call kind of lineup thing where they're all falling, and it shows his phone and he's calling Saitama.
The Saitama is just his.
Oh,
He's
shit.
probably asking him why
That's
he let
crazy.
JC staff
Saitama's
it.
just his phone wallpaper, because that actually pops up in season 1 in an actual
Oh,
scene.
well maybe it's that then.
Oh.
Yeah, there are actually lots
really?
of different Easter eggs to
great.
either One Punch Man or just one in
I know
general.
the chin guy is in both of them.
Oh yeah, I think I remember that. I don't remember specifically where in Mob.
Yeah, neither do I, but I know he makes an appearance.
I'm also really glad that the team was able to stay together for Mob Psycho 100, and that Bones didn't see the success of Mob Psycho 100 season 1 and immediately push for a season and rush it.
Mm-hmm.
They let the animators do it at their own time and really focus on doing a good project and making sure that they could get the best animators for it, and waiting, unlike a certain other one property that because honestly it wouldn't have mattered much that One Punch Man went from Madhouse to JC staff, because Madhouse had no actual staff members on One Punch Man, no actual Madhouse staff members. It was all former Bones Gainax, not Gainax, sorry, Bones Sunrise people that were working on it. And then but they were just like Bones people, so like they just went back to Bones like Nakamura did. So and so like One Punch Man season 2 is gonna be it's gonna be interesting to see without like seeing like Nakamura just continues to astound me and just how much he's able to pull off with like amazing fight scenes and choreography. Just like you feel the weight of every punch and every blow.
Yeah.
So well. So.
Well, hopefully, One Punch Man season 2 does not betray.
Yes. Oh, also I want to say, as we're nearing the ending of the show, that I also really love the ending for season 2 of Mob Psycho.
Which one?
Season 2's ending.
There's 3.
Like season 1. Oh, the very
There's
last
3.
one. The very last one. The very last one. It's just like upbeat enough and like it just sounds hopeful. So
Yeah.
I really like that.
The first, the ED for season 1 is really good too.
Yeah.
Especially the oil on glass painting style.
Oh yeah.
Or was that the charcoal?
Yeah.
I think charcoal.
Oil on glass is how they do a lot of the visual effects when Mob goes to like question mark %. That like really strange like flowing art.
I don't know how they're like the fact that they're able to do that is just like so fucking insane because it's all like none of like they rely so little on CGI stuff.
Yeah.
All the just sheer abundance of perspective shots, like quickly rotating perspective shots, all in hand drawn is amazing.
I don't understand. Like, how the hell do you have that kind of fucking budget and time? Like, especially the time, because like budget whatever, but like it's going to take forever to draw that, and like the animation checks are gonna be insane. The in between animation's gonna be insane. Like. You just need so much time to be able to pull off those shots.
However they put it together, I hope to God somebody else can replicate it for the rest of mankind's history. Like, just I hope somebody can put together a project so well organized in order to get such a just... I literally, I've never seen a project so well and consistently put together on
just
like every
trust
level.
in Bones.
It's crazy.
Bones just...
Bones gets their shit done.
They do.
And like... to me, like, it is really cool to see the consistency and the time that people are putting in, because we saw that last year with Violet Evergarden, and the fact that, like, they took, like, a year and a half to do this anime, where, like, other anime, like, you know, they're finishing up the last episode the week before it aired.
Right.
But, like, you know, Kyoto Animation is famous for, like, being able to... you know, just really focus on, like, one anime at a time and just really work on that. But, like, you know, they've increased their output. And, like, Bones also has to do with My Hero Academia. And, like, that's a huge cash cow for them. And it's a huge, like, reputation thing. So, obviously,
I love how it's...
they have to, like, invest time into that as well. So it's not like they can just, like, put all their baskets into Mob Psycho 100.
All right, what do we have here? We have about a B tier cash cow, and we have an S+++ cash cow. Now, how are we going to divide the budget? All right, let's give 80% to the B.
But actually, no. Oh man, just So like I've always really appreciated Bones. The fact that like they came out of like a bunch of ex-Sunrise people, and like Nakamura was one of the first people that they really brought in. Like it's so fun going through like Cowboy Bebop episodes and like being able to easily tell when like the fights were choreographed by Nakamura and when they were not. Like the fight from the very first episode is like Nakamura, and then the second episode, like the fight like happens largely off screen or like obscured by tables, and you're like, oh, Nakamura was not on hand for this episode.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to keep an eye in the future on the director for the series. His name is Hachikawa Yuzuru. He's got a lot of credits, but it's mostly just episodes scattered here and there. The only other series that he's ever been the main director for is Death Parade.
Yes.
Which is also a show that like its style is nowhere similar to Mob Psycho's, but it does look extremely striking.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about Death Parade from a couple guys.
Oh wow, he's done a lot of... Yeah, you're right. He has done a lot of episode directing stuff, especially with like shows that really value consistent high animation. like Death Parade in itself is like very clean. Of course, Kill la Kill was like interesting in of itself. In the way it was animated, with Trigger being its like first real length.
He did one episode for Kill la Kill. Episode 7.
Storyboarding and episode directing it. But yeah. Oh, he did some Zankyo no Terror. He did Steins Gate. He does EDs, interesting enough, but like the EDs that he's like listed for are like the Chihaya Furu ED season 1, like Sinris, correct me if I'm wrong. It's just like a background of like a like traditional Japanese art with like a maple leaf going across.
I can't remember if it's season 1 or season 2 ED that's just like the main character is standing on a bridge.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know how much directing that takes.
Yeah, well, there is one OP credit on here in which I can really see like a similar Mob Psycho style, which is for Inuyashiki, which is not a great show, but a really good OP and really, really cool visuals.
Oh shit, he did one of the more recent Detective Conan movies, Zero the Enforcer. He like directed that. I need to see that then, because...
Are you a Detective Conan fan?
Yes, I am. Long time.
Cool.
Although I stopped reading at like chapter 800-ish, and stopped following the movies at like movie 16.
Holy crap!
So you're like halfway through, right?
Yeah. It's yeah, you know, why can't they just give the length of Detective Conan to Mob Psycho? Because Mob Psycho does feel like a ad property. I'm actually very disappointed to hear that like it doesn't have that much, because I feel like it does seem like a property that could go on forever.
It does. It's gonna end.
But
you're gonna make me cry. Why would you do this? It's gonna end.
But all good things must come to an end.
That's right.
Like this podcast episode.
Ouch.
Good transition. Good segue.
Ooh, the lob,
thank
the
you.
jam.
So thank you, Tay and Maz, for joining us, and thank you so much, Hiding, for
you.
coming on. You want to plug all your stuff for us real quick?
Hi.
Yeah, how can we find you? If
We
want
can't
to
find
you
him
on the
because he's
internet?
hiding.
That's right.
In public. Wait, yes. Okay,
My secret
I'm glad.
identity is CDog VA. My secondary position is the editor of CDog VA, Evanito, Evanito. My third identity is Kamimashita, Kamimashita. So those are my 3 different channels. I'm hiding in public. Those are the 3 channels I have.
Awesome.
Ooh, and if we want to find you on Twitter or Reddit, or where people want to reach out to you for your takes,
If you want to reach out to me for Reddit, don't, because I'm never on Reddit. But
Okay.
which is ironic. Sorry, but Twitter is hiding _ the letter N. It's just literally letter N _ public. Yeah. That's it.
Nice.
Cool.
That's it.
Nice. Hey, Sinris, if more people want to listen to us and talk to us, how can they do that?
Well, they can get to us on our YouTube channel, is where we do most of our stuff, which is the Our Anime podcast. And then we have a Twitter too, but I don't know how Twitter works, so I don't actually know what is our Twitter handle.
At Tokyo Podfathers.
Okay, it's Tokyo Podfathers. Cool. Yeah, at Tokyo Podfathers there. And we have YouTube. We have Simplecast.
Spotify.
We're on
iTunes.
Spotify.
We're on Spotify, iTunes, wherever podcasts are found, Stitcher. We also have a Discord that you can join and join in on the conversations.
Yeah, join
we
our
had
Discord.
a lot of
It's
fun during April Fool's Day, where we were all shocking 807. We also had a great, really funny episode with Moz, actually, for April Fool's Day, which was the winter 2009 impressions. Spring 2009 impressions for April Fool's Day, where we went back to the past, Samurai Jack 10 years ago. So yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for watching, everybody.
Bathroom time.
Nice. We're leaving that in.